Hi, this is Emma Hollingsworth. I'm your UC for this TP and also the ELA for groups 1 and 2. And the other Emma, Emma B, is the ELA for group 3. Welcome to Teaching Humanities. This flipped collaborate is a case study report and it is assessment 1. You'll be working in a team and there is an individual component along with this. Okay, as I just mentioned, there is a team task and an individual reflection. So the word limit for the team task is 2,000 words, and you'll be working together on this and you will receive the same mark for this. Part B is the individual component, and you need to limit that to 500 words plus or minus 10%. The reference list is not included in the word count. This is quite a big assessment. There are only 2 assessments in this unit, and this one's worth 40%. The due date is Monday the 14th of August, which is week 6 at 5 p.m. If you need some more time, you need to ask your ELA for a 48-hour extension, or if you find you need a longer extension, you need to fill out a form, and then I'll get back to you as you see. And you will probably need some evidence or a really good reason to have a longer extension. Learning to be a teacher, it's really, really important to listen to other experienced teachers who are actually in the job. This assessment is so good because it is all about doing that. You are listening to 3 really good humanities teachers from different areas of stages, age levels. So we have one in early years, one in the middle years, and one in the seniors. And all 3 are from different backgrounds. For instance, we've got one in the north of Australia, 2 in Melbourne, one from an affluent area, and one from a low socioeconomic area. So we've got a really good scale of different types of schools. And I actually personally found these case studies extremely interesting to listen to, and I think they will be really valuable for you to listen to as well. Okay, as I said earlier, this case study report requires you to work as a team. So you'll be working in teams of 2 or 3. I'll be putting up a wiki by the end of week 1 in which you will be able to organise yourselves into groups. It's really important that you get onto that. You need to really get started and start talking to your person that you're partners with. This is a really good assessment because what it's doing is it's getting you to listen to the practical side from teachers actually in the job and connecting it to what you're learning, the theoretical side of it that you're learning in this unit. So I think it's a really valuable assessment to be doing. So there are 2 components to this assessment. So there'll be the team component and your individual personal reflection. You need to meet the criteria by critically considering humanities in the context of primary school environments. So as I said earlier, you're going to really think about the theories that you're learning and think about how you could put it into practice in a classroom. Okay, so when you've chosen your partner or partners, then you need to make contact with them. So you need to share your contact details and in the wiki I'll make a space for your email to be written down. You need to work out times that you will be able to collaborate. What types of ways will you communicate? So you need to actually set up some ground rules to work productively as a team member. So talk about what you're going to do, set some dates and some times to get certain things done. Make sure that you both have have jobs to do. Make sure you have time to discuss what you're doing. And make sure that you're both contactable. There's nothing worse than being in a team and not being able to contact the other person. So what a really good idea is to make a date and a time that you will catch up. I think that's a really valuable thing to do when you're working as a team. Being only small teams, hopefully this should work really well. So I will be setting up the wiki by the end of week 1, and by the end of week 2 I would like everyone to be organised with their team and have their names up on the wiki. So what you need to do is watch the 3 case study videos and make notes on each of the 3 teachers' approach to humanities. These can be found in Canvas in your assessment requirements. Now, each of you, this is basically the start of your assessment. So start here, watch the case study videos, and watch them individually, and each take notes on the teacher's approaches. Okay, so then once you've done that, you need to have made a time to get together and compare your notes with your partner and share what you've understood in each one. Okay, so you can actually, as well, I always find it good to watch the video, but I also find it really good to read the transcript as well, in case you've missed anything. So listen and read. Then you've got 2 different ways that you've read it and heard it. Okay, so also I want you to have a look at the scope and sequence planner for each teacher in the transcripts provided. So part A is the team part of the case study report. This part is 2,000 words plus or minus 10%, and you're going to work together in this. So you should have both watched the videos and had a discussion about it, and then decide what jobs you're going to do within your team task. So the following points need to be addressed. So you need to describe which curriculum areas are taught by the case study teachers. Are they classroom teachers, or are they a specialist? So do they all do the same job? So compare the different teachers. And as I mentioned earlier, all 3 videos are from very different areas and backgrounds. So it's really important for you to have a think about how this affects the way teachers plan for teaching the humanities. One of the teachers, for instance, was in an Aboriginal area, so they are more likely to be teaching from that perspective. And so another teacher is from a high socioeconomic area, so therefore the teaching from those 2 different areas could be very different. Also, one mentioned about children who don't have parents and how they have to think about what they're going to teach in regards to this and be really sensitive to the needs of the students. So all that stuff really needs to be thought about. Okay, number 3. Why are humanities important in contemporary schooling? Okay, so what you can do here is use an example to illustrate your response. So in the videos, both a single subject approach and a cross-disciplinary approach were mentioned. Okay, so what you need to do, points 4 and 5 here, are talking about Critique both different types of approach to teaching humanities, and give examples from the case studies that would support your arguments for both. Okay, so I do remember someone talking about teaching geography, and sometimes this is a really good way in a single subject approach, but also a lot of teaching the humanities revolves around a cross-disciplinary approach, and how it lends itself so easily to doing this. You also need to consider what the case studies tell you about the social context. The prep teacher, I thought, really highlighted this with her example of teaching preps and going to the park. So have a look and think about how the children are learning about their society around them. And you need to pose 4 questions that puzzle you, okay, within this part A, that you could follow up on for further research as we do the unit. Okay, so this is part of part A, 4 questions. So maybe you could do 2 each, or you could both agree on the 4. Some tips for part A. So use third person. I think it's really important to know, especially at this stage of your academic career, that you should be able to use third person. You need to support all of your claims and your everything, your statements, everything that you write down, as you know by this stage of your academic career, is that you need to support it with evidence. We need to adhere to APA referencing, as always. It's really important. You can upload your assessment and have a look first to check it out, and it's important to do that as well. Make sure that you paraphrase and use less than 10% of direct quotes. So the structure of your report may look like this: a title page, name and code, then an assessment title, your name and your group name. So both of you need to have your name, so you'd put your name and then you'd put your group member's name. So then in the main in the actual part of your part A, you need to have an introduction. And you can use, in the main body, you can use the subheadings, the questions that are given. You can do this in your main body. And then we'll need a conclusion and a reference list. So you do not need to put the exemplar in. It'll be provided on the discussion board. That'll be provided after the first collaborate. During the collaborate, I will be going through an exemplar, and we'll be discussing, it's not an exemplar that is a high distinction, and we'll be discussing how it could be made better and what they've done well and what needs to be fixed up. So that'll be a really valuable collaborate to come to, so that you can see an example of what is needed to be done. And after the collaborate, it will be put on the discussion board, but it won't be put on there until after that. Okay, sometimes it's really tricky to work as a group, and being a teacher, it's part of the job. So it's something that we need to learn how to do. Now, not everyone is going to agree all of the time, and not everyone always in teaching shares the workload. So what you need to do is try and be professional about how you behave in the group. Have a think about how you would behave if you were actually in a school and working with another teacher. So don't think about this as you doing an assessment in a university course. I want you to think, pretend that you are actually working with another teacher in your school where you have a job. If there are any problems, myself and Emma B will be here to give you some advice and to clear up any problems. But try and give it a go yourself. Try and see if you can work it out yourself first. Okay, so we have some really important areas of consideration here. It's important to share your contact details. Very important. It's very frustrating if you cannot get in touch with your group member. I think one important thing to share would be your phone number, so you can at least text each other. That way, if you don't have any internet at any time, you're able to contact each other via text. Make sure that you set clear times. Okay, mini deadlines are a great idea, and please do not leave this until the last minute. Having 2 people or 3 people working together, sometimes things come up and you can't work together, and that's when problems start. Get onto it straight away. You've got until week 6, so you've got plenty of time to start it and get going on it. Decide what type of communication you would prefer to use. Is email, phone or Skype easiest for you? What about Google Docs? That's a really good way of writing the case study together. And that way you can each edit each other's and you get to chat in real time. If you're on at the same time, make a time to all be there on Google Docs at the same time. With my planning with my team, I work with 3 other teachers when I plan. We use Google Docs in our planning and it just works so well. We're all there. We have a planning afternoon. We sit there and we're able to see what each other are writing, discuss it, and it really works well. So I really encourage the use of Google Docs and making a time to be there together at the same time. In saying that, using Word docs and sending via email, it does make it more difficult. So I recommend Google Docs to do this. As I said earlier, it's really important to act professionally. Pretend you are working at a school. You are a professional teacher. Everything needs to be done professionally, and so make sure that you're easy to work with and work in a professional manner. Now, if you are planning on pulling out of the course for whatever reason, that's okay, but please make sure that you let your ELA know as soon as possible, because it could leave someone in the lurch. Okay, so it could leave your partner with no partner, and we need to get this sorted out as soon as possible. So part B, this is the part, your personal reflection. So this is the part you do by yourself, and it's worth 500 words. So you need to, first of all, reflect on how these 3 teachers have contributed to your learning about humanities. How has it changed the thoughts about how you'll teach humanities in the future? Also, how has it connected to your learning throughout this unit as well, and the theories involved? You need, as I said earlier, part of a team, being able to work as a part of a team as an important part of being a teacher. So has this experience of working with your partner or partners, how has that affected your ability to work collaboratively with your future colleagues? Has it given you some extra skills or some extra insight into working with other people? Because it is a really big part of teaching. You will not always get along with everybody, and not everybody will always want to do what you want to do. How will you deal with this in the future? Okay, so part B is not just a token extra individual component of this task. It is an important part of the task. We are looking for responses on what worked well within the way you work as a team. So it's about you. It is not about who worked well on the task and who did not pull their weight. It is about how you worked within the team. How did you respond to these problems, if there were any? So what was your part of this? Okay, so you need to discuss how you were an effective team member and how did you collaborate with your team member successfully. So because this is a reflective task, you can use first person within this section, and as well you need to back up any statements that you make with evidence and literature, and also use APA referencing. This assessment will be submitted via Turnitin, and I realise that some of you may be a little bit worried about the use of Canvas. So at the Collaborate that will be happening in week 2 on the Monday at 8 p.m, we will discuss and have a look at Canvas and how you will submit your assessment. So don't start to panic yet. We'll have a look at that at the Collaborate. So what will happen, each team member submits one Word document. Okay, the part A will be the same as your partners. So part A will be the same. You put in the same part A. Okay, part B will also be on your Word document, and that'll be your individual reflection. You will paste it below part A. So on your Word document, you'll have part A and then part B, and then you'll have your reference list for part A and B. You just use one reference list. So what you'll need to do is talk to your partner, and you'll have to share your references for part A only, and then you'll put in your own references for part B. Okay, and again there is some information there about the word limit for part A, 2,000 words. So, and this will allow for some flexibility for you to write each question. Okay, so try and split the word count as evenly as possible. Work out which parts who is going to do what, or agree on what you're going to do, so that you'll both get a fair share. I'm quite sure that by this stage of your studies that you're all quite familiar with APA guidelines. However, here's a really good link to a site if you need some help, because there's always some little tricky things that come up. So this could be your first point of call, and if you can't find the solution, then you can email your ELA or put it on the discussion board. Before submitting your assessment, make sure that you've understood and addressed all aspects of the assessment. Make sure that you have really understood the rubric and addressed all parts of the rubric. We have to mark off the rubric, so you need to make sure that you cover the aspects of the rubric. Make sure, please, please, please proofread and edit your work. Sometimes there are many avoidable errors that are made, and it could be easily fixed with proofreading. If you're sometimes it pays to get someone else to read it for you, or even to read it out to yourself as well. So getting on to the assessment criteria. Show that you have understood the pedagogical approaches to teaching the humanities. Have you understood the theory of the course so far? Critique and analyse the place and purpose of humanities within the curriculum. Number 3, your professional reflection. And number 4, your academic expression is important as well. It is essential that you read the rubric. It is what we will be marking your assessment from. Okay, so you need to make sure you are familiar with the whole rubric. Okay, we're just going to look at the HD section because I'm sure that's what we're all aiming for. Now, there are 2 parts to the rubric. There's part A, which is your team part, okay, and all team members will be awarded the same mark for part A, irrespective of their contribution. Now, I'm really hoping that everybody contributes equally. If someone is not, basically you're going to have to step up because this case study report, this part A is worth 70% of your final grade for this task. Okay, so make sure that you put your best effort forward. So, high distinction. You need to demonstrate a sophisticated knowledge of the context and approaches that impact teaching of humanities in the primary school. So you need to go back and have a look at the theory for this one within the learning materials, and have a think about what the teachers on the case studies have told you. Your case study needs to demonstrate a sophisticated capacity to critique and analyse the place and purpose of humanities. So at this point here, looking at these words, critique and analyse, have a look at the pros and the cons of teaching humanities. Why do we teach humanities? Why is it an important part of the curriculum? You also need to show insightful connections between contemporary issues, teaching contexts, and approaches, how approaches impact on the teaching of humanities in education. And your clarity of thinking in relation to teaching and learning. You need to have a think about how you're going to show that within your case study. You need to make sure that you carefully plan and edit and proofread your work. Okay, so you'll be doing this part together in a team. So you'll have at least 2 or 3 heads to work on this. Make sure that you're all on the same page and make sure that you're all familiar with the rubric. Part B of the rubric, this is your own section. Okay, so this is the one that is the individual reflection, and it needs to demonstrate that you have an understanding of you as a future humanities teacher. You're aware of your role in the student learning and the broader societal context. You need to be able to reflect on yourself as a future teacher and your ability to work collaboratively in a team. You also need to make sure that you plan, edit and proofread your work. Now you will get an individual mark for this section. This section is worth 30% of your final grade for this part. Alright, so this is the part that you will have on your own. So you'll have a part A and a part B, and this will be the one that this is your individual task. So here are a few additional resources that you could use. Utilise hyperlinks that are in the assessment document. Conduct your own reading. Show that you're capable of doing your own research. Make sure that you use credible resources. And I'm sure that you all know that that not all web pages are a credible resource. So make sure that you do use a credible source. Use the learning materials as much as you can, and the reading our e-text is really important part of this course. It's also quite an easy read as well. I actually think this is a good text to have. The Swinburne Online Library is a good place to go for some information, and share and collaborate with your peers on the discussion board. It's not a competition about who gets the best mark. It's a sharing space. It's a place where we all want everyone to do well. So sharing your ideas with your peers is encouraged. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the Live Collaborate on Monday the 17th of July at 8 p.m. Please come along. We'll be looking through the exemplar, and we will also discuss submission on Canvas, and it might be a really good opportunity to discuss any aspects of Canvas that are troubling you as well. And basically it'll be a really great place to ask questions about the assessment, so please try and make time to come to that on Monday the 17th at 8 p.m. Hopefully I'll see you there.